Hello, everyone. This is week 5, and this is a very short lecture this week as we get into the practice this week of looking at all of our theories and terms and starting to apply them based on choice. And so your discussion this week will have a little bit more choice involved with it. You're also not going to watch a video this week as far as the assignment, but listen to a podcast. And I don't know about you, but I've been on the road for a two drives that were about 16 hours each time. And one of the number one things that I listened to was a true crime story or some sort of true crime. Now, I don't know if you get into that, but as we're studying this week about social media and the way in which we engage it, either by going on and being part of the YouTube community, being part of the posting community, or basically following some sort of a podcast or something that you basically buy into a new sort of celebrity, people who may go try to investigate, like in Serial or Crime Story. Or you might be into some sort of podcasts that talk more about political humor, or some podcasts that are a little bit less reverent and have strong social critique. I know that that's something that it's really hard to balance all the different ways in which we participate in social media. But as we look at all the different types of media that have been pretty standard, talking about earlier with our music, our movies and TV, and our sense of fashion, and also the things that we take part in as far as how we portray all of that in our social media. You know, we get a lot of iconic messages about ourselves. And again, this kind of goes back to this is the main term I would like you to think about is our cultural reproduction. How is this week's subject of talking about how we look at the world and how the world then also is something we form and have been formed by in society. Something that social media has taken to a new level, has taken to a place where we are participating at a higher factor, a higher rate. And I'll give an example of this again. A lot of times we would watch movies and TV, and critics would be the only ones who could voice an opinion other than our vote to go and watch something. But now, if you are upset about something that an ad has done in advertising, if you see something that offends you in a movie or you think needs to be addressed, you don't write your congressman, you post it or you say something about it, or maybe even go directly to the source and put on the page what your opinion is. That is part of cultural reproduction that has changed. And what cultural reproduction is and how we've seen it portrayed in this last 3 or 4 weeks is basically through the larger scope of industry and capitalism and the production being in the hands of those who have the power to make that happen. I think that is changing, and I don't know where you are on that, but you are now part of a large cultural reproduction machine yourself, with the ability to be part of the social media scene. And that is maybe the largest thing I want to bring to the table, whether you look at that through a functionalist perspective, that what role does social media play and what's it going to play in describing what pop culture is going to look like in the future, or is it disseminating pop culture to the point that we're not necessarily holding on to one large label or even large subcultures, but there's many forms in which people can participate in that. How is cultural reproduction happening with a critical eye, how people respond to movies and music and things that we surround ourselves with life to kind of identify our self-identification and our tastes, which we have had some power in developing, but it's not coming from a top-down kind of experience as much as it has in the Bourdieuian idea, as you read, of taste being developed and often having a social class involved. Yes, there's still a lot of class markers we can see sometimes with different kinds of tastes. But it's interesting when I even look at TV shows where Joanna Gaines is on oh, I can't even remember the name of that show on HGTV, but she is a person that takes barnyard chic and makes it very, very cool. Or I was looking at Queer Eye this last week as well, and how these guys took this country home and modernized it. And there's this sense of that you can't place farmhouse look or material into this particular class anymore because there's a lot of people emulating that culture. So I think this is the part I want you to kind of grasp this week as your idea of cultural reproduction being taken from the elite because of social media, and knowing that the elite are still part of that process, but it's more difficult because we do have platforms where they respond to, or these larger companies, corporations, even laws and regulations are in conversation with the common everyday person. And I think we're going to continue to see that develop. It can be annoying because we're also seeing people who are not afraid to share their opinions and don't know how to discuss, but only argue. And I think over time, we're going to learn how to do that more. And I think we're going to understand better platforms over time. Social media is such a new phenomenon that we really are working through a lot of the processes. And it reminds me very much when I read about other technologies that people have experienced. In my lifetime, I think about, for example, cable. When it came on, it was like every single person was excited because it was this new ability to have all these different TV channels. But then we also saw a ton of people critiquing, people watching too much TV and having certain ratings and that type of thing. We've now kind of disseminated that, and we talk about that a little bit different, and we're not as afraid of it. In fact, we've created spaces where we have more choices, and that's what I think is going on right now. You may think otherwise, but this is the thing I would love for you to, in your post this week, to really focus on. How are the idea of cultural reproduction as it comes from companies, government, and the ideas of what society allows as far as taboos, how is that being disseminated by now a newer audience that gets to participate with their own voice and platforms? And how are you then part of that cultural reproduction at a higher level because you have that at your disposal? This week, I will be assigning, also, I want to say this at the end, and I've shared this in the announcement, I'm going to share your peer review assignments, and so I want you to keep an eye out for those as well. Continue to be posting as much as you can, and again, if you need me for anything, including, since we're canceling tomorrow, which is Monday night, the 29th, our conference session, if you need some one-on-one time to figure out a little bit more on your final essay or your final project, feel free to call me or either set up some time with me to FaceTime, and I'd be happy to help you get through that. Otherwise, have a really good week.